Simulation complete. Subject, Serafina Vance. Survival time, 72 hours. Outcome, F rank, gruesome death. Synopsis, you worked up the courage to ask her out. She smiled and said yes. While you were lost in a state of bliss, she shattered your legs and dragged you into the basement of her family's mansion. In the endless darkness, surrounded by her twisted affection, you bled out, dying of blood loss and sheer terror. I jolted awake at my desk, my entire body drenched in a cold sweat. At the front of the room, the calculus teacher was still scratching equations onto the whiteboard, chalk dust drifting in the air. Outside the window, the sun was shining. But my eyes were glued to the girl sitting quietly in the first row. Her name was Serafina Vance, Sarah for short. She was, by unanimous consent, the goddess of Northgate High. Just then, as if she could feel my stare, she turned her head and gave me a smile. It was sweet, pure, angelic. A wave of absolute cold washed over me, an icy chill that shot from the base of my spine to the crown of my head. Because 10 minutes ago, inside the golden ticket cheat code in my head called the Life Simulator, I had just been dismembered by her own two hands. 1. My name is Ethan Hayes, and I'm a painfully average high school senior. If there was one bright spot in my otherwise unremarkable life, it was Serafina Vance. She was like a character straight out of an anime, the perfect female lead. Valedictorian, stunningly beautiful, and kind to everyone. She had a gentle, warm personality that made her seem approachable, even though she was completely out of everyone's league. She was the dream girl for every guy in school, myself included. I'd had a secret, hopeless crush on her for 3 years. Then this morning my life changed. A system called the Life Simulator had materialized in my mind. Its function was brutally simple. By spending mental energy, I could select a target and simulate a future involving them. In a moment of sheer adolescent impulse, my first thought was, I can use this to finally get with Sarah. I imagined simulating 100 perfect ways to ask her out, finding the one with the highest success rate, and then winning the girl of my dreams. It was the beginning of my epic life story. So, I poured nearly all of my mental energy into my very first simulation. It started beautifully. I chose a romantic sunset under the cherry blossom trees by the school's main entrance and presented her with the confession I'd rehearsed in my head 1,000 times. Sarah, I've liked you for a long time. Will you be my girlfriend? In the simulation, Sarah's cheeks turned a faint pink. She shyly nodded, the scene so perfect it looked like a painting. I was ecstatic, and then the painting was slashed to ribbons. She smiled and said, Ethan, to celebrate us getting together, let me take you somewhere special, okay? Like a fool, I followed her to her family's sprawling mansion in the wealthy suburban hills outside the city. The next thing I knew, I was staring at the synopsis that had plunged me into an icy hell. Legs shattered, dragged into a basement, dying in unimaginable pain and fear. Brrring. The school bell rang, yanking me back from the hellish memory. Students started noisily packing their bags. A few guys nearby were laughing, talking about how beautiful Sarah was and brainstorming ways to ask her out. Listening to them made my stomach churn. Ask her out? With what? Your life? Ethan, what are you spacing out for? Let's go grab lunch, my best friend, Leo Martinez, said, slapping me on the shoulder. I looked up, dazed, just in time to see Sarah walking past my desk. She still had that gentle look on her face. She even nodded at me with a small smile and said softly, See you later, Ethan. Her voice was sweet and melodic, but to me, it sounded like a death knell from the underworld. I managed a stiff nod, unable to force a single word out of my mouth. It wasn't until her silhouette vanished through the classroom door that I let out a long, shaky breath. I felt like I'd just been pulled from a lake, my clothes soaked through with cold sweat. Leo stared at me, confused. Dude, what's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost. Are you sick or something? You're pale as hell. I forced a weak smile, unable to explain. Was I supposed to tell him that the flawless goddess of our school was actually a possessive monster who would break your legs and lock you in a dark room for confessing to her? He'd think I'd lost my mind. Nothing, maybe just low blood sugar, I lied. Well, all the more reason to hit the cafeteria. Let's go. Leo grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the door. My mind was replaying the bloody scenes from the simulator. I didn't have the slightest appetite. Sitting in the noisy cafeteria, I stared at the pizza on my tray, my stomach twisting into knots. I couldn't accept it. Maybe I had just chosen the wrong approach in the simulation. Too direct. Girls don't like that, right? Yeah, that had to be it. I focused my thoughts, turning my attention back to the simulator in my head. After resting through lunch, some of my mental energy had returned, enough for another, less intensive simulation. Initiate New Life Simulation, NOT. This simulation will consume minimal mental energy, resulting in limited depth of prediction. I gritted my teeth and selected yes. Please choose simulation path. I took a deep breath. This time, I chose a completely different strategy. The supportive nice guy path. No grand confession. I would just be there for her, quietly and consistently. I'd win her over with kindness and thoughtful gestures, making her fall for me naturally. A slow burn. Water dripping on a stone. That had to be safe, right? Simulation starting. You begin executing the supportive nice guy plan. You bring Serafina breakfast every single day, rain or shine. At first, she politely declines, but you persist. After 2 weeks, she begins accepting it with a smile. You help her with homework, you save her notes when she's absent, and you're the first to bring her medicine and soup when she gets sick. Your kindness does not go unnoticed by your classmates. 1 month in, Serafina starts smiling at you genuinely. She occasionally asks for your help with schoolwork. Your relationship appears to be growing closer. Reading this, a flicker of hope ignited in my chest. It's working. This was the right way. But the very next line of text froze my smile in place. One afternoon, a girl from your chemistry class asked for your help with a problem. You two chat and laugh together. You fail to notice Serafina watching from a distance, her eyes turning cold. That evening, you drink the milk she gives you as a thank you for all your help. You die peacefully in your sleep from cyanide poisoning. Simulation complete. Outcome: F rank untimely demise. Synopsis: her kindness was meant for you and you alone. Chatting happily with another girl was a capital offense. I spat a mouthful of water all over the table, earning disgusted looks from the students around me. Leo jumped back. Jesus, Ita, what the hell is your problem? I ignored him, my hand trembling as I wiped my mouth. I sat there completely thunderstruck. Poison, just because I talked to another girl for a few minutes? This wasn't just some clingy, possessive girlfriend. This was a goddamn demon. I stared at the cold, clinical F-rank outcome in my mind, my hands and feet turning to ice. 2 simulations, 2 different methods of dying, each one more bizarre and efficient than the last. I finally understood the truth. This wasn't some dating sim I could conquer. This was a survival horror game, and the girl I was trying to win over was the final boss, ready to kill me at a moment's notice. 2. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I started actively avoiding Sarah. In class, I never turned to look at her again. When the bell rang, I was always the first one out the door. If I saw her down the hall, I'd immediately duck into the nearest classroom or bathroom, like a mouse hiding from a cat. My strange behavior was so obvious that even Leo noticed. Ethan, seriously, what is up with you lately? He asked, cornering me by my locker. You used to practically pray for a chance encounter with Queen Sarah. Now you act like she has the plague. What could I say? I just shook my head with a bitter smile. Dude, the SATs are coming up. I gotta focus. All this relationship drama, it's just getting in the way of my future at Harvard. Leo shot me a look that said, yeah, right, but thankfully he dropped it. I could hide for a while, but I couldn't hide forever. It happened during gym class that Thursday. We were playing basketball during free period. I was on the court with Leo when I noticed Sarah had appeared on the sidelines, holding a bottle of water. She just stood there, watching quietly. The afternoon sun caught her hair, making her glow like an angel. Instantly, every guy on the court was drawn to her. Their testosterone levels spiked, and they all started playing harder, faster, each one hoping to catch her eye. Everyone except me. I felt like a gazelle that had just been spotted by a lioness. My movements became stiff and clumsy. I fumbled passes. My shots were all air balls. Ethan, are you even trying? Leo complained. I wiped the sweat from my brow, desperate for this torture to end. During a timeout, I made an excuse about needing the restroom and made a break for it. I was almost at the school building when a soft voice called out from behind me. Ethan, my entire body froze. It was Sarah. I turned around slowly, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Hey, Sarah, what's up? She walked up to me and held out the bottle of water. It was a fancy brand, still cool to the touch. I saw you were sweating a lot. Here, have some water. Her eyes were sparkling, her smile as sweet as ever. To anyone else, this was a dream come true. The school goddess showing concern for a regular guy. It was an honor. But in my eyes, that bottle of water was no different from the glass of cyanide-laced milk in the simulation. I took an involuntary step back, holding up my hands. Oh, no thanks. I'm not thirsty, but thanks. Sarah's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She tilted her head, her long eyelashes fluttering like a butterfly's wings. Her eyes filled with a look of innocent confusion. Why not? Did I do something wrong? She bit her lower lip, looking like she was on the verge of tears. It was a look that could break any man's heart. I felt the temperature around me drop. I knew this look all too well. Based on my 2 disastrous simulations, when she made that face, it was a 5-alarm fire. The danger meter was screaming into the red. My brain kicked into overdrive, scrambling for a safe way out of this. Refusing her would piss her off. Accepting the water, well, who knew what was in it? What could I do? Just then, an arrogant voice cut in. Well, if it isn't Queen Sarah, since when do you slum it with losers like this? I turned to see Braden King, the resident rich kid in our class. His family owned half the city, and he acted like it. He was also Sarah's most persistent and obnoxious suitor. Braden shot me a contemptuous look before plastering on what he probably thought was a charming smile for Sarah. Sarah, don't waste your time with this nobody. I got you the new electrolyte-infused sports drink. Imported. He held out a sleek, fancy-looking bottle like it was a holy relic. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. A savior had arrived. As much as I couldn't stand Braden, in that moment, I wanted to give him a medal for being the world's best human shield. But Sarah's next move plunged me right back into the abyss. She didn't even glance at Braden. Her eyes remained locked on me, her voice laced with a strange insistence. Ethan, I bought this water specifically for you. She emphasized the word specifically. The air grew thick and heavy. Braden's face turned a deep, blotchy red. To be publicly ignored by the girl he was chasing, while she offered a gift to his rival, it was a bigger slap in the face than if she had actually hit him. Hayes, who the hell do you think you are? Braden exploded, pointing a finger at my face. She's offering you a drink, you ungrateful prick. Stop playing hard to get. I was screaming internally. Dude, this isn't me playing hard to get. This is me trying to stay alive. As the situation escalated, a crazy, desperate idea sparked in my mind. It was a total Hail Mary. I looked at Sarah with an expression of sincere regret. Sarah, thank you so much, really. But I'm allergic to plastic bottles. If I touch them, I break out in this horrible rash, so. Even in my own ears, the excuse sounded completely insane. But it was all I had. Braden burst out laughing. Ha ha, allergic to plastic? Hayes, are you from another planet? That's the dumbest lie I've ever heard. Sarah just stared at me, her expression unreadable, a flicker of something analytical in her eyes. I dug in deeper, doubling down on the lie. It's true, a weird medical condition I've had since I was a kid. So, I appreciate the thought, really. Without waiting for a response, I turned and bolted. Sorry, my stomach's killing me. Gotta find a bathroom. I took off like an Olympic sprinter, leaving the disaster zone behind me. I didn't stop until I was locked safely inside a bathroom stall, my heart pounding against my ribs like a drum. This was insane. Dealing with Sarah was harder than getting into Harvard. Leaning against the stall door, I gasped for air and started to think about a serious question. Why? Why had Sarah suddenly taken an interest in me? A total nobody. As far as I could remember, we'd barely exchanged a dozen words in 3 years. Could it be that my sudden avoidance of her had actually piqued her interest? Like a cat that becomes obsessed with the one person in the room who isn't paying attention to it? If that was the case, my plan to stay safe had backfired spectacularly. I couldn't let this continue. I had to run a third simulation. But this time, my goal wouldn't be romance. This time, I had only one objective: survival. I needed to simulate how to stay alive while navigating Sarah's increasingly aggressive affection. 3. It took 2 agonizing days for my mental energy to recover enough for another deep simulation. During that time, Sarah didn't approach me directly, but the feeling of being watched never went away. It was a constant prickling sensation on the back of my neck. In the crowded hallways, in the cafeteria, from a distant corner of the classroom, I could feel a pair of eyes fixed on me. I knew they were hers. This only strengthened my resolve. I had to get ahead of this. I had to find a safe path forward in the simulator. Friday night, I locked my bedroom door, took a deep breath, and launched the system. Initiate New Life Simulation. NOT. This simulation will consume significant mental energy, allowing for a deep dive analysis with greater detail. Yes, please choose Simulation Path. This time, I didn't choose a specific course of action. I created a scenario. Scenario. Serafina has developed a strong interest in me and is attempting to get closer. My objective: maintain a safe distance without provoking her and survive the last 6 months of high school. Simulation starting. A screen of light materialized in my mind, lines of text scrolling rapidly. Your deliberate attempts to distance yourself from Serafina have successfully triggered her predatory instincts. She begins to orchestrate frequent, accidental encounters with you. In the hallway, she bumps into you, dropping her books everywhere, then asks for your help in a soft, helpless voice. In the cafeteria, she accidentally spills her tray on you, then insists on cleaning the stain herself with an apologetic look. In the library, she always manages to find the seat directly across from you, watching you study with a look of pure admiration. The scenes described made my skin crawl. These were the exact situations I had been desperately trying to avoid. You choose the cold shoulder approach. You respond to her advances politely but distantly. You believe this will make her lose interest and back off. You are wrong. Your indifference to her is a form of playing hard to get, a unique and captivating challenge. Her interest in you intensifies. My heart sank. So, the cold shoulder approach was a failure. What about the opposite? As if hearing my thoughts, the simulator presented a new branch. Alternative path. Warm response. You begin to actively reciprocate Serafina's advances. You joke with her, laugh with her, and even ask her to study with you. Serafina is overjoyed. Your relationship deepens quickly, and to outsiders, you look like you're on the verge of becoming a couple. However, you soon discover that her need for control is beyond anything you could have imagined. She goes through your phone, demanding to know about every girl in your contacts. She slowly erodes any personal space you have, inserting herself into every aspect of your life. You begin to feel suffocated. One day, you go to a gaming cafe with Leo without telling her. The next day, Leo accidentally falls down a flight of stairs at school, breaking his leg. Serafina holds your arm, her voice as innocent as an angel's. Ethan, you should stay away from people like that, okay? They're a bad influence. You only need me. You look at her flawless, pure face and feel a primal fear grip you. You try to break up with her. That night, while your parents are out of town on a business trip, Serafina breaks into your house. You are found dead in your bed. The cause of death is a gas leak. The police rule it a tragic accident. Simulation complete. Outcome F rank. Social death followed by actual death. Synopsis. You thought you were dating her. No, you were applying to become her exclusive property. A collectible that tries to escape has only one fate: destruction. I exited the simulation, my body limp, feeling as if I just run a marathon. The mental exhaustion was 1,000 times worse than any physical fatigue. Ignoring her didn't work. Engaging with her got me killed even faster. This was a no-win scenario, a dead end. No matter which path I chose, the final destination was always death. I refused to accept this. Was I just supposed to wait for the real Sarah to make her move? No, absolutely not. If the conventional paths were all blocked, I had to try something unconventional. Forcing myself to rally, I prepared for a fourth simulation. My mental energy was already at rock bottom. Another deep dive might knock me unconscious. I didn't care. Simulation path. Become the school's biggest badass. Use brute force and intimidation to make Serafina fear me and stay away. It was the only thing I could think of. If reason and kindness were useless, maybe raw, primitive aggression would work. I would show her that I wasn't some shy, timid kid. I was a rock that would break her teeth if she tried to bite. Simulation starting. You begin to radically change your image. You skip class, get into fights, and talk back to teachers. You cultivate a reputation as the school's most feared delinquent. You deliberately showcase your most aggressive and brutish side whenever Serafina is around. You believe this will disgust her and make her avoid you. You're wrong again. Your fall from grace and rebellion, in her eyes, possess a kind of tragic, broken beauty. She believes you are acting out like this solely to get her attention. Far from being repulsed, she now feels that a man like you is in even greater need of her salvation. One day after school, Braden King and his cronies corner you in an alley. Just as a fight is about to break out, Serafina appears. She gives Braden a single, cold glance. He and his friends turn pale, as if they've seen a ghost, and practically trip over themselves to get away. You are stunned, unable to understand why Braden, of all people, would be so terrified of her. Serafina steps toward you. She gently wipes a speck of dirt from the corner of her mouth, her eyes filled with a mixture of adoration and obsession. She says, "Ethan, please stop this. I know you're hurting. From now on, if anyone tries to hurt you, I'll make them disappear from this world." Her voice is a whisper, but the words send a shiver of pure dread down your spine. You finally realize Braden isn't afraid of her. He's afraid of her family and the immense power they wield. You try to push her away, to escape, but she grabs you, her grip surprisingly strong. She whispers in your ear, her voice like a dreamy murmur. "You can't run away, Ethan. From the moment I first saw you, you were mine. The angel version of you, the demon version of you, they both belong to me." You smell the sweet, cloying scent of chloroform. You lose consciousness. Simulation complete. Outcome. Synopsis. Congratulations, you have unlocked the hidden ending, the caged bird. You will become her most perfect private possession, imprisoned in a place no one will ever find, by her side for all eternity. "No," I screamed, bolting upright in bed, my heart trying to hammer its way out of my chest. Outside, the sky was just beginning to lighten. I had passed out cold after the simulation ended. That final outcome was more terrifying than any death. Imprisoned for eternity. I couldn't even begin to imagine that kind of hell. The kind-hearted nice guy, the aloof genius, the rebellious bad boy. I had tried every persona I could think of, and every single one led to my destruction. I slumped back onto my bed, overwhelmed by a sense of utter despair. Was there truly no way out? And then a thought struck me, a flash of insight in the darkness. All of my simulations had revolved around one central question. How do I react to Serafina? I had been treating her as an uncontrollable variable, a force of nature like a hurricane. All of my efforts were defensive, evasive. But what if? What if I changed my entire approach? What if, instead of thinking about how to avoid her, I started thinking about how to eliminate her? The moment the thought formed, it was like a spark landing in a pile of dry tinder. The hope I thought was long dead roared back to life. That's it. No more defense. No more running. It's time to go on the attack. I'm going to use the simulator to find her weakness, to find the one fatal flaw that I can exploit to bring her down. This isn't a dating game. It's not even a survival game anymore. This is a war, and I'm going to be the one left standing. My eyes, reflecting the dawn, hardened with a resolve I never knew I possessed. 4. I completely overhauled my simulation strategy. I stopped simulating what I should do and started simulating Serafina herself. I needed to know everything about her. Her family background, her upbringing, her thought processes, the logic behind her actions. Know your enemy. It was the only way. My mental energy was a finite resource, and each deep dive felt like it was carving a piece out of my soul. But I had no other choice. Simulation initiated. Target. Serafina Vance's family background. Analysis starting. Serafina Vance is the sole daughter of one of the city's wealthiest and most powerful families. Her father, Julian Vance, is a titan of industry. Her mother is a celebrated artist. As the only daughter of her generation, she was raised like a princess, her every whim catered to, her every desire fulfilled. The Vance family employed an extreme form of protective parenting, removing any and all obstacles from her path. This fostered an extreme possessiveness and a dangerously warped personality. Anything she desires, she must have by any means necessary. Her older brother, Marcus Vance, is a high-ranking deputy chief in the city's police department. He dotes on his younger sister to a fault and has used his authority on multiple occasions to cover up her minor indiscretions. I drew in a sharp breath. No wonder Braden King was terrified of her. No wonder she could make Leo have an accident or make my death look like a gas leak in the simulations. They had connections on both sides of the law. It was a completely different league of power. The pressure I felt was immense, but it was coupled with a strange sense of exhilaration. The more powerful the enemy, the greater the victory. I continued the simulations. Target: Serafina Vance's past history. Analysis starting. In elementary school, Serafina had a very close best friend. When that friend started making other friends and drifted away, she felt betrayed. 3 days later, the friend was the victim of a hit and run by a large truck while walking home from school. The accident left her with severe injuries and permanently disabled. The driver was caught and identified as a drunk driver. He was sentenced to prison. However, traces of the Vance family's influence are present in the handling of the case. In middle school, Serafina developed a crush on a young, charismatic male teacher. That teacher later got engaged. On his wedding day, his fiancée vanished without trace. She was never found. The teacher suffered a complete mental breakdown and was institutionalized. The case was classified as a missing person investigation and eventually went cold, with no evidence pointing to any suspects. One disturbing incident after another. The hidden truths buried beneath years of silence rewrote my entire understanding of Serafina. She wasn't just some possessive girl from a romance novel. She was a monster, a demon wearing the skin of an angel. Her so-called love wasn't about possession. It was about annihilation. She would destroy anything she couldn't have and destroy anyone who tried to take her property away from her. And I was her newest target. I was running out of time. I had to find her vulnerability before she made her move in the real world. I began running a huge number of quick, low-energy simulations, each one focused on a single question. Simulation: what is Serafina's greatest weakness? Result: her extreme emotional paranoia. It is both her greatest weapon and her most fragile point. She cannot tolerate any form of betrayal or imperfection. Simulation: what does she fear most? Result: loss of control. When events unfold in a way she cannot predict or manipulate, she descends into chaos and panic. Simulation: how can I expose her true self? Result: by creating a perfectly orchestrated scenario of betrayal that she cannot control, forcing her to tear off her own mask in a public or undeniable way. The clues began to connect in my mind. A bold, insane plan started to take shape. I was going to set a trap for her. A trap that would make her believe she was in complete control, right up until the moment it snapped shut on her. The risks were astronomical. One wrong move, and I would be finished. But I had to do it, because in the real world, Sarah's offensive had already begun. She started leaving expensive gifts in my locker, limited edition sneakers, the newest iPhone, all under the guise of various casual excuses. I didn't dare accept them, but I couldn't outright refuse either. I stored them all in a box, planning to return them to her at the right time. She started inserting herself into my daily life. She'd save me a seat in the cafeteria. She'd organize my class notes for me, even offering to do my homework. Her suffocating, all-encompassing kindness made me an outcast in my own classroom. Some were envious, others were jealous. Braden King looked at me with daggers in his eyes. He tried to start trouble with me a few times, but it seemed Sarah had warned him off in some way, and he always backed down. Only I knew the torment I was living in. I was a fly caught in a spider's web. The more I struggled, the tighter the silk threads became, and the beautiful, patient spider was watching from a distance, savoring the hunt. The results of our last practice SATs came out. I bombed it. My score plummeted. It was unavoidable. All my energy was consumed by fending off Sarah and running simulations. My guidance counselor called me in, her disappointment palpable. Sarah came to comfort me afterward. "Ethan, don't feel bad. One test doesn't mean anything, she said, her voice gentle. Hey, why don't I help you study? My house has a huge library. It's really quiet. No one will bother us. There it was. The invitation. Come to my house. It was the starting point for every single one of my death simulations. I looked into her sincere, caring eyes and felt nothing but ice in my veins. This was her final ultimatum. If I said no, she would almost certainly resort to more drastic measures. My plan had to be put into motion. Now, I looked up at her and managed to produce a brilliant, beaming smile. Wow, really? That would be amazing. Thanks so much, Sarah. Sarah's eyes lit up instantly. How about this Saturday? I nodded. Perfect. There are actually a few things I was hoping to ask you about. The arrangement was made. She walked away, practically skipping with joy. Watching her go, I slowly exhaled. The final battle was about to begin. 5. On Saturday, as planned, I arrived at the Vance family mansion. I had visited this place countless times in the simulator. I knew it as well as my own home. I knew which room was her bedroom and which door led to the basement that had served as my prison. I knew which vase held a hidden microphone and which bookshelf concealed a secret passage. I knew that all the household staff had been conveniently given the day off. And I knew that today, this place was going to be my stage. Sarah greeted me at the door, wearing a simple white dress. She looked ethereal, like an angel who had never known a moment of sin. Ethan, you're here. Come on in. I stepped into the grand foyer, feigning awe at the opulent decor. Your house is incredible. Sarah smiled, a hint of pride in her expression. Maybe someday it can be your house too, she said, half joking, half testing. I laughed nervously, playing the part of the flattered, shy boy. She gave me a tour of the mansion, ending in the library. It was a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows that bathed the space in light. On a large mahogany desk, 2 glasses of iced lemonade were already waiting, sweating in the afternoon warmth. Here, have something to drink, she said, sliding one of the glasses toward me. I looked at the glass, my eye twitching. In simulation number 78, I drank this lemonade, passed out, and woke up strapped to a surgical table in the basement. It was laced with a powerful, fast-acting sedative. I picked up the glass, but didn't drink from it. Instead, I set it back down. Sera? Before we get started, would it be okay if I used your restroom? I asked, trying to sound slightly embarrassed. Of course. It's just down the hall, first door on the left, she said, pointing, not a trace of suspicion in her eyes. I nodded and left the library. I didn't go to the restroom. Following the layout for my simulations, I made my way to the villa security room. The Vance family had a state-of-the-art system, but for someone who had hacked it hundreds of times in his mind, it was child's play. I entered the override code and disabled all cameras and audio recording devices in the library and the surrounding hallway. Then, I took a micro recorder from my pocket and switched it on. This was step 1 of my plan: eliminate her surveillance and establish my own. With that done, I made a quick trip to the actual restroom before heading back to the library. Sarah was sitting at the desk, peacefully flipping through a textbook. She looked up when I entered and gestured to the untouched lemonade. Not a fan of lemonade? I smiled, picking up the glass and swirling the contents. It's not that I don't like it, I said. It's that I don't dare drink it. For the first time, Sarah's serene expression cracked. What? What's that supposed to mean? I ignored her question and asked one of my own. Did you know that this particular sedative isn't available over the counter? You can only get it through very specific channels. And while it's colorless and tasteless when dissolved in water, it happens to glow a faint blue under ultraviolet light. As I spoke, I pulled a small pen-size UV light from my backpack, the kind used to check for counterfeit bills. I clicked it on and shone the purple beam on the glass. The lemonade instantly took on an eerie, pale blue luminescence. The color finally drained from Serafina's face. It was the look of someone whose perfect disguise had just been ripped away, replaced by shock and a flicker of excitement. How did you know? Her voice was different now, no longer sweet and melodic, but raspy and cold. I continued my performance, carefully placing the active recorder under a large, open book on the desk. I also know that your basement is set up like an operating room. It's full of all sorts of tools. I know that in middle school, you had a teacher you admired, and his fiancée mysteriously disappeared on their wedding day. And I know that in elementary school, You had a friend who accidentally had her life ruined after she started hanging out with other people. With every sentence, Sarah's face grew paler. By the time I finished, her angelic features were gone, replaced by a chilling, predatory fury. The rage of a creature whose darkest secrets have been dragged into the light. "Who are you? Who the hell are you?" she hissed, her eyes locked on me like a cornered animal. This was it, the final reveal. I looked her straight in the eye and delivered the final blow. "I'm the one person you will never, ever control." That sentence was the key. It unlocked the deepest, most psychotic part of her. Control. She started to laugh, a hysterical, unhinged sound. "Ethan, are you really that arrogant?" She shot up from her chair, sweeping everything off the desk in a single, violent motion. "You think knowing a few things means you can escape from me? You are so naive. I'm telling you right now, from the moment I decided I wanted you, everything about you became mine. Your past, your present, and your future. You walked through that door today, and you are never, ever walking out." She was screaming now, all pretense of sanity gone, and every single word was being captured by the tiny recording device on the desk. Step 2 complete. Provoke the target into a full confession. Faced with a completely unhinged Serafina, I displayed the perfect amount of terror. I stumbled backward, my face a mask of horror. You're insane." My fear seemed to fuel her, satisfying her need for control. The madness in her eyes intensified as she stalked toward me. "Yes, I'm insane, and you're the one who made me this way," she shrieked. "I did everything for you. Why did you avoid me? Why did you reject me? Why did you dig into my past? You betrayed me, Ethan." With a final, piercing scream, she lunged at me. In the simulations, she had tackled me like this dozens of times. I knew what came next. She would use the taser hidden up her sleeve to incapacitate me, then drag me to the basement like a sack of garbage. But today was different. The moment before she made contact, I sidestepped, perfectly evading her attack. At the same time, I stuck out my foot. Sarah, propelled by her own momentum and tripped by my leg, lost her balance completely and went sprawling onto the hardwood floor. She looked up at me, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. In her world, I was a weak, nerdy bookworm. How could I possibly have dodged her? I calmly walked back to the desk and picked up the glass of drug lemonade. "You seem disappointed I didn't drink this." I crouched down beside her, grabbed her chin with one hand, and forced her mouth open. In another life, another simulation, she had done this to me with a vial of poison. Today, I was returning the favor. MMPH. MMPH. Sarah began to struggle violently, a genuine, primal fear finally appearing in her eyes. She was scared. For the first time in her life, things were not going according to her plan. I tilted the glass and poured every last drop of the drugged lemonade down her throat. "You love putting people to sleep so much," I said, my voice cold. "Why don't you take a nap yourself?" I let her go. She collapsed onto the floor, coughing and gagging, trying to spit the liquid out, but it was too late. The sedative was already working. Her struggles weakened. Her eyes lost their focus, and within moments, she was completely unconscious. I stood up and wiped my hand on my pants. Step 3 complete. Neutralize the threat. I retrieved the recorder, checked the file. The audio was crystal clear. Then I walked out of the library. I didn't call the police. I knew that with the Vance family's power, even with this recording, getting a conviction would be nearly impossible. They had an army of lawyers who could paint me as a liar, a blackmailer, a fantasist. I wasn't looking for legal justice. I was looking for total annihilation. I wanted to see her dragged down from her ivory tower, to have everything she and her family prided themselves on turn to ash. I went to the living room and picked up Sarah's phone from the coffee table. No password. Another detail gleaned from the simulations. She was so arrogant she never believed anyone would dare touch her things. I opened her contacts and found a family group chat, simply named Vance Family. It included her father Julian, her mother, and her high-ranking police chief brother, Marcus. I sent the audio file directly to the group, but I wasn't done. I opened her Instagram, which had thousands of followers, and posted the audio file as a story, making sure the privacy was set to public. Her followers included every student and teacher at our school, along with the children of every prominent family in the city. I had just dropped a nuclear bomb on Northgate's high society. I imagined the phones at the Vance household were currently melting down. Julian and Marcus Vance were probably having the worst day of their lives. But there was one more piece to my plan. I pulled out my own phone and dialed a number I had discovered in a deep dive simulation, a number I never thought I'd use. The phone rang for a long time before a sharp, wary female voice answered. "Who is this?" "Mrs. King." "Hello," I said calmly. "My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm one of Braden's classmates. I believe I have something you might find very interesting." On the other end of the line was Braden King's mother, a ruthless businesswoman famous for her cutthroat tactics, and Julian Vance's biggest corporate rival. The King and Vance families had been at war for years, each looking for a weakness to exploit. This recording was the sharpest knife I could possibly hand her to finally gut the Vance empire. "What is it?" she asked, her tone impatient. "It's a recording of Serafina Vance personally confessing to several felonies, including aggravated assault and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. I wonder if a scandal of that magnitude might be enough to, say, destabilize a certain competitor's stock price." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke again, her voice was low, filled with a predatory excitement. "Where are you? Give it to me." "I've already sent the file to your corporate email address," I said. "As for me, I'm just a good student trying to get into college. I'd rather not be involved." I hung up the phone. I knew exactly what a woman like Mrs. King would do. She would leverage this scandal with surgical precision, maximizing the damage to her rival. The Vance family was about to be bled dry. I wiped my fingerprint from Sarah's phone, deleted my call history, and walked out of that cold, beautiful mansion as if I had never been there. Outside, the sun was bright. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders for the first time in weeks. "Serafina, your game is over. My life is just beginning." 7. I took a lift home from the gated community. On the ride back, my phone was completely silent, but I knew that somewhere out of sight, a hurricane was gathering strength. Sure enough, that night, the internet exploded. The school's unofficial subreddit, gossip pages on Instagram, and every student group chat were on fire. An anonymous user had leaked the recording everywhere. It was the pristine, perfect Serafina Vance, in her own hysterical voice, confessing to how she had driven a teacher to insanity, had a classmate permanently disabled, and was planning to kidnap and torture me. At first, no one believed it. People assumed it was a deep fake, a vicious rumor. Sarah's public image was too perfect. But then, the internet detectives started digging. Old news articles were unearthed. Tragedy strikes Northgate educator on wedding night. Bride missing. Local middle schooler crippled in hit and run. Driver sentenced for DUI. The old stories lined up perfectly with the details in the recording. The tide of public opinion turned in an instant. Holy crap. Is this for real? Sarah Vance is a psychopath. This is terrifying. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Wait, the guy's voice in the recording. Is that Ethan Hayes from her class? No wonder he's been avoiding her like the plague. He was literally running for his life. This is some next-level true crime stuff. My mind is blown. The entire school was in an uproar. In a single night, Serafina Vance went from being the school's dream girl to its most notorious villain. And I, the quiet nobody, was suddenly at the center of the storm. I knew this was just the beginning. The real war was being fought by the Vance family. The next day was Sunday. I stayed home studying. At 3 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw two men in sharp, dark suits standing outside my door. They had cold, professional expressions. They were not friendly visitors. I didn't open the door. "Ethan Hayes," one of them said, his voice calm but firm. "We've been sent by Mr. Vance. We'd like to have a word with you." "Mr. Vance." "Julian." They worked fast. "I have nothing to say to you," I said through the door. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "Don't make this difficult, son," the other man said, his tone hardening. "You have no idea the kind of trouble you're in." I let out a cold laugh. "Trouble? I think the Vance family is the one in trouble. I heard Vance Industries stock took a nosedive the minute the market opened this morning. And King Corp was right there to snap it all up, wasn't it?" The men outside fell silent. They clearly hadn't expected a high school kid to be following the stock market. What do you want?" one of them finally asked. "I don't want anything," I said, my voice turning to steel. I want to be left alone to study for my SATs and go to college. You'd be wise not to bother me again, because that recording isn't the only thing I have. If you push me, we can all go down together. See who has more to lose. It was a bluff. I had nothing else. But I was betting that in their current state of panic, they wouldn't dare call it. There was another long silence. Finally, I heard their footsteps receding. I leaned against the door and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I had survived the first wave, but it was far from over. On Monday, I went back to school. The moment I walked through the gates, I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. Looks of pity, awe, curiosity, and even some morbid delight. Serafina wasn't there. The official story was that she had suffered a mental breakdown and was on indefinite medical leave to receive treatment. A perfect, clean excuse. Braden King wasn't there either. I guess his mother had him on lockdown, keeping him far away from the mess. In class, Leo rushed over to my desk, his face a mixture of terror and admiration. "Ethan, you're a legend. A freaking god," he whispered frantically. "Man, you're so lucky to be alive. My dad was talking about it last night. The Vance family is totally screwed. It's not just their company. Marcus Vance, the brother, got a visit from Internal Affairs." I nodded. It was all going according to plan. A woman like Mrs. King doesn't do things by halves. "But you gotta be careful, man," Leo warned. "Even a wounded animal is dangerous. They're not going to just let this go." I know. Of course I knew. After school, as I was walking out, a black Mercedes sedan pulled up in front of me. The tinted window rolled down, revealing the haggard but still elegant face of Serafina's mother. "Ethan, get in the car. We need to talk." Her voice was laced with exhaustion and poorly concealed hatred. I shook my head. "Mrs. Vance, I don't think we have anything to talk about." "You will talk to me," she snapped, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "You destroyed my daughter. You destroyed my family. How much money do you want? Just name your price. $1 million? $5 million. In her world, every problem had a price tag. I looked at her, and for a moment I just felt pity. It was this exact mentality that had created a monster like Serafina. "You've got it all wrong, Mrs. Vance," I said calmly. "I don't want your money. I destroyed her because she was trying to destroy me. It's called self-defense." I turned and walked away, her furious curses echoing behind me. I didn't look back. I knew the Vance family's approach had now shifted from bribery and threats to pure, unadulterated revenge. I had to be more careful than ever. I started using the simulator to run threat assessments on my daily life. Simulation: kidnapped by Vance family goons on the way home from school. Simulation: food poisoning from a tampered delivery order. Simulation: a convenient hit-and-run accident on the day of my final exams. Dozens of gruesome death simulations allowed me to preemptively avoid every trap they laid for me in the real world. I became a ghost. I went from school to home and nowhere else. I never ate or drank anything I didn't prepare myself. I treated every intersection like a potential ambush. I was living on a knife's edge, but I was living. The Vance family's attempts to get to me grew more and more desperate, but they could never find an opening. Meanwhile, their empire, under constant assault from King Corp and buried by public scandal, was beginning to crumble. Finally, the day of the SATs arrived. I walked into the testing center, my mind completely calm. After everything I had been through, a standardized test felt like a vacation. When I walked out after the last section, the bright sun made me squint, but I felt an incredible sense of release. It was all over. My high school life had ended in a way I could never have possibly imagined. 8. The test results were posted online a few weeks later. I got a 1580. It was a score I could have only dreamed of before. While not quite at Sarah's genius level, it was more than enough to get me into any Ivy League school I wanted. With her out of my life, I could finally focus completely on my studies. Leo did well too, and we made plans for a celebratory road trip before college started. Just as I was starting to imagine my new life, I got a message from the last person I ever expected to hear from. It was Braden King. A message popped up on my phone. "Ethan, got a minute? We need to meet." I was surprised. After all this, he wanted to see me? I replied, "Whatever it is, you can just say it here." "No, in person. It's about Sarah." Reading her name sent a jolt through me. I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop. I picked a table by the window where I could see everything around me. Braden showed up a few minutes later. He looked different, worn out. The arrogant, swaggering attitude was gone. He sat down and was quiet for a long time before he finally spoke. I came here to apologize. I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. Back then, I was a blind idiot. I treated you like an enemy because of a girl. I had no idea you were literally fighting for your life against a psycho. I was just a stupid jock. His voice was full of a genuine, weary regret. Is that all you came to say? I asked. No. Braden shook his head, his expression turning serious. I came to warn you. He leaned forward. Serafina. She's gone. My blood ran cold. Gone? What do you mean? I thought she was in a psychiatric hospital. That was just a story the family told the public to save face, Braden said with a bitter laugh. She was under house arrest, basically, but 2 nights ago she escaped. Disappeared. The Vances are using every last resource they have to find her, but she's completely vanished. My heart sank into my stomach. A psychopath, who hated me more than anyone on earth, was now free and somewhere in the shadows. That was a threat more terrifying than any I'd faced before. Why would she run? Braden looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange pity. Why do you think? The Vance family is finished. You're the only thing she has left to obsess over. She's coming for revenge. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. My mom is sending me to study abroad until this blows over. But before I left, I had to tell you. Be careful, Ethan. That girl isn't human anymore. She's a monster. He walked out, leaving me alone at the table, a chill seeping into my bones. I immediately activated the simulator. Simulation initiated. Objective: locate the missing Serafina Vance and assess the threat level. Analysis starting. Warning: severe mental energy consumption. The screen of light in my mind flickered violently. The sheer volume of data being processed sent a spike of pain through my skull. Serafina has used the Vance family's remaining black market connections to create a new identity. She has not left the country. She is hiding in this city. She has acquired a significant quantity of chemicals and weapons. She is currently planning a final, devastating act of revenge against you. Simulation projection. In 1 week, your college acceptance letter will be delivered. As you go to retrieve it from the community mailbox, Serafina, disguised as a delivery driver, will incapacitate you with a high-voltage taser. You will be taken to an abandoned chemical plant. She will not kill you. Instead, she will inject you with a custom-developed neurotoxin. You will not die, but your central nervous system will be permanently destroyed. You will become a quadriplegic, unable to move or speak, but with your mind fully intact, a living doll. She will care for you, feed you, clean you, and talk to you every day, treating you as her most perfect, permanent possession. You will live out the rest of your natural life in a state of unending, conscious torment. Simulation complete. Outcome: S rank, a fate worse than death. Synopsis: death is not the end. Sometimes, living is the real hell. Ugh. I stumbled into the coffee shop's restroom and retched into the sink, my body trembling. That outcome, it was 1,000 times more horrifying than any of the death simulations. To be a prisoner in your own body, a toy for that monster. I splashed cold water on my face, forcing myself to calm down. I couldn't panic. I still had the simulator. I knew her plan. That meant I could counter it. No more waiting. No more hiding. This time, I would hunt her down. Before she could make her move, I was going to find her and end this nightmare for good. 9. Back in my room, I prepared for one final, all-or-nothing move. I needed more intel. I focused all of my remaining will, pushing every last drop of my mental energy into the simulator. Initiating extreme, deep dive simulation. Objective: pinpoint Serafina Vance's exact location and detailed plan of action. Warning: this simulation will cause critical mental energy depletion and may result in permanent psychological damage to the user. Proceed. Proceed, I commanded through gritted teeth. An unimaginable pain erupted in my brain, like 1,000 needles twisting into my nerves. My vision went black, and I almost passed out, but I clung to consciousness. This was my only shot. The text in my mind scrolled at an impossible speed, a waterfall of information pouring directly into my brain. Serafina's hideout. south side of the city. The abandoned Sterling Chemical Plant, warehouse #3. Cover identity, a transient artist named Lily Price. Action plan. She will hack into the FedEx delivery network to track your acceptance letter. On July 25th, at approximately 10 a.m., she will intercept the delivery driver, steal his uniform, and ambush you at your community mailbox. Equipment. 1 modified high-voltage taser. 1 syringe of custom neurotoxin. 1 untraceable cargo van. Allies, none. The Vance family is broken. She is operating alone. The information burned itself into my memory. I could see the warehouse in perfect detail. The cobwebs in the corners, the chemical stains on the floor, and her face twisted by hatred and obsession. The simulation ended. I collapsed in my chair, utterly drained, my soul feeling scoured and raw. It took me a full day to recover even a fraction of my strength. But I knew time was running out. Today was July 23 RD. I had less than 48 hours until her planned attack. I didn't call the police. The reasons were the same as before. I had no proof. If they raided the warehouse, all they would find was an artist named Lily Price. The weapons and chemicals would be hidden somewhere they'd never find. I had to get the proof myself. I had to go there. It was walking directly into the lion's den. But I had the ultimate ace up my sleeve. Before I left, I ran one last series of crucial simulations. Simulation. I will infiltrate warehouse number 3 at the Sterling Chemical Plant, find evidence of Serafina's plan, and neutralize her. Simulation starting. You choose to move in under the cover of darkness. You successfully bypass the perimeter security cameras and enter warehouse #3. The warehouse is pitch black and smells of corrosive chemicals. You turn on your phone's flashlight. The light startles Serafina, who is resting on the second floor catwalk. Moving with absolute silence, she descends the stairs behind you. As you are examining a metal locker, she stabs you from behind, piercing your heart with a long knife. Simulation complete. Outcome. F rank. I took a deep breath and tried again. Simulation starting. You choose to move in under the cover of darkness. This time, you use military-grade night vision goggles instead of a flashlight. You discover the taser and the syringe of neurotoxin hidden inside the locker. As you raise your phone to take a picture, your foot steps on a shard of broken glass, making a faint crunching sound. Instantly alerted, Serafina throws the main breaker switch on the second floor, cutting all power to the building, including the backup system. Your goggles go dead. In the absolute darkness, she has the home field advantage. She brains you from behind with a steel pipe. Simulation complete. Outcome. F rank. It was no use. I ran the simulation a dozen more times, and each time I died in a new and horrible way. That warehouse was her territory, a death trap she had perfectly prepared. A direct assault was suicide. I stare at the failure screens, my mind racing. If I can't go in, then I have to draw her out. A new plan began to form. 10. July 24 th. Late at night, I didn't go to the chemical plant. Instead, I went to the 24-hour convenience store across the street from my apartment complex. I bought a cup of instant noodles and sat at the window seat, my eyes fixed on the entrance to my building. According to the simulation, to ensure her plan was perfect, Sarah would conduct a final reconnaissance of the target site the night before the attack. She would scout the area, check camera angles, and map out her escape routes. I was waiting for her to show up. The minutes ticked by. My noodles went cold. Just as I was about to give up, a figure emerged from the shadows. She wore a black baseball cap pulled down low and a baggy hoodie, her face obscured by a medical mask. If the simulator hadn't given me a perfect profile, I would never have recognized the once immaculate Serafina Vance in this grungy, disguised person. She was here. She moved like a ghost, pacing around the entrance to my complex, studying every detail with a chilling intensity. I remained perfectly still, watching her. When she finished her survey and started to walk away, I slipped out of the store and began to follow. I kept a safe distance, using cars and storefronts for cover. My movements were fluid and precise, rehearsed countless times in my mind. As expected, she headed south, but she didn't go straight back to the plant. Instead, she ducked into a run-down neighborhood, weaving through a labyrinth of alleys before entering a dilapidated apartment building. A second hideout? The simulator hadn't shown me this. It seemed even an extreme deep dive couldn't predict every variable. I stayed put, waiting across the street. About 30 minutes later, she emerged and hailed cab. I memorized the license plate and immediately flagged down the next one. Follow that taxi, I told the driver. The cab ride ended exactly where I expected, the main gate of the abandoned Sterling chemical plant. Sarah got out, scanned the area one last time, and then melted back into the industrial shadows. I had the driver drop me off half a mile away. I now had 100% confirmation. That plant was her nest. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Hello, I'd like to report a crime, I said, my voice steady. I think there's an illegal chemical deal happening at the old Sterling chemical plant on the south side. I just saw some suspicious people carrying hazardous materials inside. I didn't mention Serafina. I didn't mention myself. I was just a concerned citizen reporting a vague but alarming tip. I knew that any report involving hazardous chemicals would be taken very seriously and trigger a high-priority response. The dispatcher's tone immediately sharpened as she took down the details. After I hung up, I found a concealed spot on a nearby hill that gave me a clear view of the plant. Less than 20 minutes later, several police cruisers arrived without sirens, parking discreetly on the perimeter. They were clearly setting up for a surprise raid. They sealed off the exits, and then a tactical team moved in. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was it, the final move. Inside that warehouse, Sarah would have no idea what was happening until it was too late. All of her illegal equipment, the taser, the neurotoxin, the unregistered chemicals for her traps, would be found. Her fake identity as Lily Price would crumble under the slightest scrutiny. She was trapped. This time, there was no escape. 11. A commotion erupted from within the plant. The lights in warehouse number 3 flashed on, followed by the muffled sounds of police shouting and a woman's enraged scream. It was Sarah. A few minutes later, the main doors burst open, and she was dragged out by 2 officers. Her cap and mask were gone, revealing her pale, furious face. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes burned with a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. She was still fighting, still screaming. Let go of me. Do you have any idea who I am? My father is Julian Vance. But the Vance name was no longer a shield. It was an anchor, dragging the last remnants of their legacy down into the abyss. The officers ignored her protests and forced her into the back of a squad car. Shortly after, a hazmat team emerged from the warehouse, carrying several sealed containers marked with biohazard symbols. They had her, and they had the evidence. The police cars sped away, their sirens finally wailing in the night, carrying away the last and most terrifying ghost of my high school years. I stayed on that hill, watching until the flashing lights disappeared into the distance. I let out a long, slow breath, a profound exhaustion washing over me. I made my way down the hill and started the long walk home. The moon cast a long shadow behind me. I checked my phone. July 25th, 1:00 a.m. In a few hours, my college acceptance letter would be delivered safely by a real FedEx driver. I would open it in the sunlight and begin a new life, free from fear and shadows. The life simulator in my mind became quiet. A final line of text appeared, glowing softly. Final simulation complete. Outcome, S+ rebirth. Synopsis, you have conquered the abyss, and in doing so, you have conquered yourself. From this day forward, your life is your own to write. No more simulations needed. The screen of light dissolved into tiny motes of starlight and faded away, disappearing from my consciousness forever. Its mission was complete. It was gone. I smiled up at the night sky and whispered, "Thank you." 12 months later, I started my freshman year at a top university in Boston. The case of Serafina Vance had become a media sensation. The investigation uncovered her connections to multiple cold cases, and with the relentless pressure from the King family, the Vance empire collapsed entirely. Julian and Marcus Vance were both sentenced to prison for a slew of charges, including obstruction of justice, accessory to multiple felonies, and abuse of power. As for Serafina, A court-appointed psychiatrist found her legally sane and fully responsible for her actions. With multiple charges against her, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She would spend the rest of her twisted, miserable life behind bars. I followed the story in the news, but it felt like it was about someone else in another world far away from mine. My college life was exciting and, for the first time, beautifully ordinary. I joined a few clubs, made new friends, and had weekly video calls with Leo where we'd trade stories and insults. I was no longer the paranoid, haunted kid living in constant fear. The light had returned to my world. One afternoon, I was studying in a library when a girl with a high ponytail gently tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me? My name is Chloe. I'm with the student council," she said with a friendly smile. "We're having a welcome event for freshmen this weekend, and I noticed you're always studying alone. I was wondering if you'd be interested in coming." Her smile was warm and genuine, like the afternoon sun filtering through the library windows. I looked at her, and for a moment I was speechless. Then I smiled back. I stood up and offered her my hand. Chloe, imitan. It's really nice to meet you. As for the event, I paused, looking into her bright, curious eyes, and said, "I was actually wondering if you'd let me take you to a movie instead, just the two of us." A blush crept up Chloe's cheeks, but she nodded bravely. "Okay," she said softly. "I'd like that." Outside the grand library window, the sun was shining, and a gentle breeze rustled the autumn leaves. My life had finally turned to a new page. And this time, I didn't need a simulation to know it was going to be a beautiful story.